and it is the 18th of June. We are in Southwest Indiana, where it is dry, but not as dry as some parts of the United States and Midwest. Our corn is anywhere from probably V5, V6, all the way to tasseling in 2+ weeks. And soybeans are about the same, anywhere from not in the ground because wheat is just starting to be harvested. So we have double crops to go. And then there are beans that are already R1 and, V6, V7 trifoliate. So I wanted to give a quick plant health fundamental update for you all. So when we think of BASF and we think of our fungicide plant health pillars, first of all, we have disease, but then we also have two other pieces that we actually have an EPA label for. So increased environmental stress tolerance and improved growth efficiency. There is not another company that I know of that has a EPA-approved plant health label for their fungicides. So the disease control, of course, you probably once used Headline Amp. We have moved to Veltima, but we're going to talk a little bit about, Trivapro, which is probably the #1 competitor for Veltima or Headline Amp in the South. Environmental stresses, that is going to really help, I think, some of you guys make a decision where we are in this drouthy and hot condition, just so you know what some of the BASF fungicides are doing for you. And then growth efficiency. So again, in a low disease year, why do we still see BASF fungicide outperforming competition? So we know that 13% of soybean yield is lost each year due to disease, and 1.5 billion bushels of corn is lost annually from disease, which is about 12% of corn production. So if you have not been on my YouTube channel, Donner's Dirt, make sure you go on there. There's several good videos that I've posted over the years. One of them is on the latent period. You need to know this about fungicide and their diseases that they're going after. So the latent period is the time between infection and reproduction. During the latent period, disease invades the crop tissue, produces toxin, and reduces productivity, which then in turn can mean lower yields. So the main diseases that we have in this area, of course, top of mind is tar spot in corn. It's 14 to 20 days of a latent period. Southern rust is 7-10. Target spot in soybeans is 8. We don't necessarily have to worry about this one as much. Frog eye leaf spot is 7 to 10 days. And then gray leaf spot is also, it's 19 days. So this shows you day 1 after inoculation of gray leaf spot on the plant surface. 9 days after inoculation, you can see that those spores have gone down through the tissue and they're actually causing damage in that leaf tissue there. You may be able to see a small lesion by day 9, most likely not. If you've been with me in a field, or if you always look up at the leaf towards the light, and if you see little speckles, that is disease coming in. You're probably seeing this at this point. 19 days after infection is when we actually start to see a lot of lesions appear, and we have really done a lot of damage at this point. So I would highly encourage you to not wait until you see the disease, because as we know with target spot and gray leaf spot, once you actually can see just a little bit of disease, it's too late. So we know it takes about 19 days for those spores to, come back out of the leaf. They're spreading. They're actually creating those lesions that we see. By the time you are out there scouting it and seeing it, it's probably actually closer to a month that this disease has been actively creating and destroying our plants. So that's why I say do not wait. If you call me to scout for disease, I probably won't be very happy. So let's talk about tar spot real quick. In 2021, it was pretty bad. It lost several bushels of yield, up to 50 plus in the north part of the state, even all the way down here in southern Indiana. It is a spore shooter, and so that means that the wind can actually disperse it as well. It likes corn, the host is corn. It will overwinter, and infections can begin around V6, V8 under the favorable conditions. So that means cooler temperatures at night, 60 to 70 degrees, high relative humidity, prolonged leaf wetness of 7 hours is key. And so right now we haven't had that leaf wetness. However, if we do start to pick up rain here in the later part of June, we could possibly see some of these conditions. And the spores can spread up to 240 feet and deposited in nearby fields. So it's spread that way, but we also know that it can overwinter. What we do know is that fungicides, certain fungicides have tar spot control. The range of their efficacy is huge. And I know I'm BASF, and I know that this is my slide. And of course, Veltima looks great, except for maybe one little lesion there. Do your own research. Check the university data, check third-party data. You know, look at Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio. Look at all of their data and make a decision for yourself what fungicide you want to use. So if we're talking about environmental stress, especially in hot and dry, we have about 60 to 75% of the flowers abort on soybean plants. When we're past R4 and the moisture stress is greater, or we have heat of 95 or greater, it reduces the total pods per plant, which we knew. At R6, and we have moisture stress, it reduces seed size. In corn, when we have leaf rolling, for every 12 hours, we see 1% yield loss, and we have a 1% yield loss for every 4 hours during the pollination time. So you can also see down there heat stress over 93 degrees, how many days it takes, and the percent of yield loss there. So this is all important because BASF, again, has years ago submitted to the EPA all of our data, all of our research and findings. The EPA agreed. They saw the science behind it, and they gave us an EPA label of plant health. So what you're looking at here, the dark green line, is showing us the inhibition of ethylene biosynthesis. Ethylene is a hormone in the plant that tells the plant, hurry up, let's reproduce because it's time to die. And so you can actually see that the azoxystrobin actually increases ethylene. So when a plant is stressed, it closes its stomates and it actually increases the ethylene. It also makes it harder for that plant to respirate. So we definitely do not want to do that. We want to be reducing the amount of ethylene produced because then that means that plant doesn't think that it needs to die quite yet. And when we're talking about corn, we actually are picking up days of grain fill. And that is huge when it comes to yield. This is just a quick video of drought-stressed corn. You can see we have a Czech, Delaro, Trivapro, Miravis Neo, and Veltima. And so they were all watered equally. They were all sprayed at the same growth stage, and now they're in a drought condition. You can see how the different ones are reacting. There might be one that doesn't even survive. We could probably speed this video up a little bit. On day 6, they watered them, and that was considered the start of recovery. But what you should notice is what the plants look like after a little shot of rain and how they recovered with the different fungicides. Okay. Also, you know, with Revitec on soybeans in a drought condition. So you're looking at the days going by, the daytime 77, night 72, grade on the same day. Now the drought starting, day 75 on day 14 of fungicides being on there, day 6, day 1 of recovery. So watered equally. And you can see some where fungicides actually use or there. Healthy. The growth efficiency. Because of all the things I just mentioned, we can also see cooler temperatures in both the corn and soybean canopy because we are helping that plant to respirate better. We're doing that because we're keeping those stomates open longer versus keeping them closed. When plants are stressed, their stomates close. So keeping them open allows that plant to respirate better. It doesn't have to use all of its energy to keeping itself cool. That energy goes back into producing more yield. This is just an NDVI image of the plant health where we have Revitec versus untreated. And the other thing I like to look for is more nodes. We should have an average of 1 to 2 more nodes per BASF treated plant versus the others. And then I just had to throw this in there because it's Father's Day and this was my husband's field back in 2020 when I was having him look at some Revitec, and he always likes to test me. So I was driving by one night and I saw this strip through his field. And I mean, it made no sense. I thought, well, that can't be a different variety. It ended up being where he left an untreated strip. And so because he did this, I asked him to weigh it and it was 12 bushel. And in 2020, we had a very low disease year. Let's talk about applications and timing. With Veltima, we get extended residual. We get the opportunity to apply it pre-tassel. I will say, if you're going pre-tassel, make sure that you are using an adjuvant that is also labeled for pre-tassel. Adjuvants can cause arrested ear if they have the component NPE. A fungicide, at least the BASF fungicide, will not cause arrested ear. Let's make this very clear. You can spray Veltima anytime from spiking all the way until, you're harvesting it if you want to. So if you're going out there at V12, V16, we have no issues with you putting Veltima on. Doing it with a ground rig at, 5 feet allows a lot of different sprayers to get over it. If you are going with just a 1 pass, I would recommend 10 ounces. If you are doing 2 passes, so going pre-tassel and then coming back at what I would call, I don't call it this, people call it brown silk, which I think is more like R2, R3. That would be the second timing. And you can do both of those applications at 7 ounces. So again, this is just looking at the expanded window that we have with Veltima, going as early as V12 all the way to V3. Again, our sweet spot for a 1 timing application is probably that VT to R1. Again, if you're doing 2 passes, I would do, pre-tassel. Again, we want to get that fungicide on the plant before the disease starts to really ramp up, definitely before the latent period. And then also when that plant, we can start helping it with some of the other plant health benefits with the growth efficiency, starting to reduce the ethylene so that it is healthier, respirating better, going into grain fill. The other thing that it does, it increases the rate of photosynthesis. So this is really important in soybeans as well. Second application can be Veltima or Headline Amp at R2. When we have Revilock out, then that would be a really great second application as well. And that you can see that will be here next year in 2024, Revilock. So again, jumping back to 2020, because it was such a low disease year, this was a field in Gibson County, Indiana, where we had a grower apply with a ground rig at V11, and then the whole field at VT. So over here, you can see his plant health imagery, where the darker is a lot higher plant health. And then on his yield monitor, you can see the darker green, where we had the 2 paths, and that was about 20 bushel yield difference there. So real quick, going through soybeans, frog eye leaf spot is definitely prevalent in the state. Revitec fungicide has excellent control on frog eye. Another, it can cause 10 to 60% yield. It does like warm, wet, humid conditions. So right now we're not really too concerned about it, but definitely know what to look for, because this can be a really devastating disease if it does not go untreated. Target spot, we don't have to worry about as much in southern Indiana. However, you do need to be aware of it. If we ever do have an outbreak, it can quickly defoliate your plant. Once again, Revitec is outstanding on it. And then Cercospora, this one creeps up on us, it seems like every year in areas. And it's also, a lot of people think it's just sunburn. So you can utilize a fungicide to help with Cercospora as well. Revitec is great on that. So Revitec is 8 fluid ounces, R2 to R4, with R3 being the sweet spot. If you're going to do a 2-path, people like R2 and R4. They also like R3 and R5. So that's kind of up to you what you want to play with there. And then real quick on Revilock. So Revilock is going to be launched here in 2024. We will have some field trials out this summer. It is a disease-only fungicide. So we are looking at really long residual control and high rates of Revysol and Xemium. So that's our new group 3 and then our group 7. It locks in our yield protection. We have premium disease control in soybeans, and it's going to be labeled for corn. And then it's also going to be an effective resistant management tool by getting our different modes of action out there. So that is what I have for us right now. If you have any questions, please let me know. I hope that helps with making some decisions on application timing and rate. And I wish you all the luck. All right, thanks.